Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the need for the PermaDeath Dungeon Master. Okay, so what is the PermaDeath Dungeon Master? Well, let's talk it through. Okay, so first of all, I think this is my invention, but what I'm doing is I am creating a tabletop role-playing game element, right, for specific inclusion in D&D as canon, right? This has already been done. Wizards of the Coast has already built a pattern for this. Session 0 was not a Dungeons and Dragons element, right? The tabletop role-playing game community invented Session 0, and then, most importantly, D&D players were like, oh, hey, we see that. That's valuable. We're bringing that into Dungeons and Dragons. It had a little bit of use. It was, floating around. And then it came into mattering, right? Session 0 matters today because it's in the greatest tabletop role-playing game in the world, the oldest role-playing game in the world, Dungeons and Dragons. Session 0 didn't really matter until it was in Dungeons and Dragons, but it matters now because it's canon in Dungeons and Dragons. It came in Tasha's guide to everything. And Wizards of the Coast set this pattern. They're like, hey, tabletop role-playing game community, you guys create some stuff. We'll pick among it, and then we'll bring it into Dungeons and Dragons and turn your little project into reality and something that matters and has value. That's the way it works, right? So I'm putting this idea forward. I've never heard anyone else talk about a permadeath dungeon master, certainly not in the construction that I'm about to tell you. If somebody beat me to it, point me to them. I'll share credit, right? But actually, I don't want any money or any. I'm giving this out to the world for anyone and everyone to use immediately today in Dungeons and Dragons. In your Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition game, right? You have the ability to choose what you want to put in it. That's specifically called out in Dungeons and Dragons on page 4, right? So I think you should use this. And then I'm hoping that all of us together will be able to demonstrate the value of it to Wizards of the Coast, and they'll put it into the game exactly the same way they did with Session 0. All right. So here we go. What's the permadeath dungeon master? So first of all, I'm sorry, can't tell you what it is quite yet. I've got to explain why we're here. Dungeons and Dragons has the year 2022 is a second launching pad for Dungeons and Dragons. There's all these things. These amazing things that have happened, right? D&D Direct, D&D finally figured out how to communicate their message to their people. Dungeons & Dragons is both commercially and critically successful. Dungeons & Dragons has opened the second Pillar Gate, right? Gary Gygax opened Combat Gate in 1974. The author of Strixhaven opened, I think it's Amanda Hames, opened up the second Pillar Gate for social interaction with Strixhaven, and that's where that's the real impact of that is hitting in 2020. It's incredible. Like, there has never been a year in the history of Dungeons and Dragons since 1974 like 2022. Dungeons and Dragons is hitting full stride. And with that, we need to change some stuff. Like, we need to, so one, we shouldn't just have a bunch of vanilla dungeon masters anymore. We can have different kinds of dungeon masters. And this is the new type of dungeon master that I think is desperately needed, okay? The permadeath dungeon master, okay? So first of all, the spark for this idea came from Mythic Quest. Mythic Quest is an Apple TV original. I just got 3 months of Apple TV for free. Whee! I'm very excited. I'm actually watching a lot of it. And Mythic Quest was a series that was on there that I've wanted to watch for a couple of years, and I'm watching through it now, and it is brilliant. It's what you need to be doing with your dungeon. It's what you need to do as a dungeon master, okay? First of all, if you're the kind of dungeon master who wants to have 4 people around their table and they want to create a fun game for those 4 people, shove off. You got no business on this channel. We don't talk about that here, right? You could shuffle over to DM Coach or DM's Lair or Taking 20 or whatever, and they'll pet you for doing nothing at your table and go like, oh, I want to create a fun game for 4 people. I ain't talking about that, right? What I'm talking about is real art, real passion, discussion of philosophy, taking Dungeons and Dragons, and so Mythic Quest isn't a show, right? It is a piece of art that blends passion and philosophy and literature and theater all into a crystallized shard, right, of beauty and honor and wisdom and power that is jammed into the heart of the American nation viewer, right? And they are left affected and impacted, right? That's what I'm talking about, right? Art that matters, art that transcends fun, right? Mythic Quest is a brilliant piece of art that talks about humanity, talks about culture, and talks about video gaming. And your Dungeons and Dragons game needs to do the same. If you're telling stories about goblins and you guys are doing a hack and slash game and everybody's having fun, I ain't talking about that nonsense. I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons that impacts your table, your community, your state, America. Right? This is all American specific. Okay? That's what we're talking about here, right? And with that known, right, we arrive at the PermaDeath Dungeon Master. The PermaDeath Dungeon Master is a dungeon master specifically, right, that says the following. They say, "Welcome to my table. I appreciate that you have come and are playing Dungeons and Dragons with me." Okay? The moment your player character dies, you will never play Dungeons and Dragons with me ever again. Your player character death is the death of you at my table. You will never sit under my dungeon mastering again, ever. That is a promise. Let's start, right? Now, why would a dungeon master do this? Well, here's the thing. A lot of tabletop role-playing games and a lot of products today have the ability to give their product away for free, right? But many people are saying, no, don't ever give your product away for free. At minimum, charge $1, right? Impose value on what you do, right? So, one, you get a player come in and they're like, wait, what? If my player character dies, I can never play at your table again? My journey with these players is done? Yes, that's right. When your player character dies in my Dungeons & Dragons game, you are never welcome at this table again. You will never play here, ever. You will not play under me as a player ever again. It is a permadeath. Your player character death is a death of you at the player for my dungeon mastering. You have one shot. See how far your ride takes you. Welcome. Let's begin. Right? And so one, you'll have players who are going to run. They'll run for the hills. So they're like, I'm going to go play with a regular dungeon master who will, let me do stupid things and die 20 times in their game, who runs a West March or some stupid funnel game. I'm not comfortable with meaning or impact or art or passion or truth or honesty or philosophy. I just want to hack a goblin in half. Let them go. You'll have others that will say, what? Now we're here, right? Now we've arrived with the Dungeons and Dragons that actually fully matters, right? And a Dungeon Dragons who is saying, a dungeon master is saying, I ain't a vanilla dungeon master. I'm a permadeath dungeon master. The shape of my table is different. The shape of my game is different. I am different. And I will recast you and reforge you and reshape you as a player and a person, because there's more going on here than fun. Are you ready? That's a perma dungeon master. The reason we go into this, right, is we have arrived. Dungeons and Dragons isn't like any tabletop role-playing game on the planet. We can demand from players. We're not scraping by. We're not Dungeons and Dragons is not converting its world to any other system. We have defeated all systems. We can put demands on players that no game master can even think about in order to reshape them as players and people. We have arrived at a point where the dungeon master role is so special and so unique that it can truly have impact. And we can begin crafting types of dungeon masters that cannot exist in any other system, because those systems aren't strong enough to bear the weight. This will take weight. We can only bring the permadeath dungeon master forward now because Dungeons and Dragons is forged from titanium diamond at this point. it has defeated everyone, and we can take it in new directions that no other system can bear the weight of. That's the PermaDeath Dungeon Master. How many of you are going to start your PermaDeath Dungeon Master campaign this week? Let me know in the comments below. How many of you are like, no, that's a bad idea? Let me know that in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.